Who cares about them? They're nobody. They don't matter. Those words. I have been a judge for a long time. I have heard a lot of things in this courtroom. Angry words, sad words, words people say when they are scared. But those 5 words, they don't matter. Those stopped me cold. They landed in this room like a stone dropped into still water, and every single person in Providence Municipal Court felt the ripple. I am Judge Frank Caprio. This is my courtroom. These walls have heard confessions, tears, apologies, and pleas. They have heard the voices of the poor and the powerful, and I will tell you something I believe with everything I have. When you walk through that door, none of that matters. Not your money, not your name, not the size of your bank account. Justice does not have a price tag. And on this particular Tuesday morning, I was about to prove that to a young man who clearly had never been told no in his entire life. He stood at the defense table like he owned the building, 29 years old, a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, gold cufflinks, a watch I later learned retails for $42,000. His hair was perfectly styled. His posture said one thing loud and clear. He believed he was untouchable. His name was Donovan Ashford Wells III. Yes, the third. And from the moment he walked in, I could feel the tension in the gallery shift. People leaned forward. A few exchanged glances. Something about him made the air in the room change. If you believe justice should be equal for everyone, that no amount of money should buy your way out of accountability, you are going to want to see exactly what happens next. Stay with me. The bailiff called the case at 9:14 in the morning. Case number 2026 CR 00874. The City of Providence versus Donovan Ashford Wells III. I looked down at my notes. I looked up at the man standing before me. I folded my hands and I said, "Good morning, Mr. Wells. Please state your full name for the record." He glanced sideways at his attorney, then back at me, and he said it slowly, like he was doing me a favor just by being there. Donovan Ashford Wells, the third. I nodded. I noted the tone. I said nothing about it yet. Now let me tell you about the victim in this case. Her name was Rosalie Ferreira. She was 51 years old. She worked 2 jobs. During the day, she was a cafeteria aide at a public elementary school on the east side of Providence. She served lunch to 300 kids every single day. She knew their names. She saved extra portions for the ones who came in looking hungry. At night, she cleaned offices downtown. She did this 6 days a week. Rosalie was not a wealthy woman. She drove a 12-year-old sedan that she had paid off herself over 5 years. That car was her lifeline. It got her to Job 1. It got her to Job 2. It got her home safely at midnight so she could be up again at 5:30 in the morning. 3 weeks before this court date, Rosalie was driving home from her night shift. It was 12:47 in the morning. She stopped at a red light on Marchetti Avenue, and Donovan Ashford Wells III, who was driving a rented luxury SUV, ran that red light at approximately 51 miles per hour in a 25 zone and hit Rosalie's car on the driver's side. Her car was totaled, gone, completely destroyed. Rosalie was taken to the hospital with a fractured wrist, bruised ribs, and a concussion. She missed 12 days of work. 12 days with no pay because neither of her jobs offered paid sick leave. She fell behind on her rent. She borrowed money from her sister just to buy groceries, and she had no car to get back to work when she was finally cleared to return. She sat in the 3rd row of the gallery that morning. Her wrist was still wrapped. She looked tired, not the tired that comes from one bad night. The tired that settles into your bones when life keeps hitting you and you keep getting back up anyway. I saw her. I see everyone in this room. Donovan's attorney, a man named Prescott Hull, sharp suit, expensive briefcase, the kind of lawyer you hire when you plan to make a problem disappear, stood up immediately and began talking about scheduling conflicts, about his client's demanding professional calendar, about how this matter could perhaps be resolved efficiently. I let him finish. Then I said, "Mr. Hull, this is a courtroom, not a boardroom. We will proceed at this court's pace." Donovan smirked, just barely. But I caught it. That was the first moment. I asked Donovan to describe the events of that evening. He shrugged, actually shrugged, and said, "Look, it was late. Visibility was poor. Accidents happen." His words were smooth, rehearsed. He sounded like a man reading from a script his lawyer had written for him. I said, "Mr. Wells, a woman was injured. Her car was destroyed. She lost 12 days of work. Does that concern you?" He tilted his head slightly. He said, "With all due respect, Judge, that is what insurance is for." A woman in the gallery made a small sound, not quite a gasp, more like the sound you make when someone says something that shocks you so much your body reacts before your brain does. I held up one hand. I said calmly, "We will discuss insurance in a moment. Let us first discuss what your insurance company actually did." I asked the clerk to enter Exhibit A into the record. Exhibit A was a letter, not from an insurance company. It was a letter from Donovan's personal attorney sent to Rosalie Ferreira 4 days after the accident. The letter informed her that if she agreed to sign a release of all claims, meaning she could never sue or seek further compensation, she would receive a check for $2,000. $2,000 for a totaled car, a broken wrist, 12 days of lost wages, medical bills, and the ongoing inability to get to work. The letter also included a line I want you to hear carefully. It said, and I quote, "Please understand that pursuing this matter further will be both costly and time-consuming, and may not result in a favorable outcome for you. In other words, give up. Take the small check. Go away quietly." Rosalie had not signed it. Good for her. Before I continue, I want to stop here for just one moment. If what you are hearing right now is making your blood boil, if you are sitting there thinking this is not right, this cannot be how things work, I need you to share this story. Send it to someone, because this is exactly the kind of case that needs more eyes on it. More people need to know that inside this courtroom, money does not make the rules. I do. Now let us keep going, because it is about to get much worse before it gets better. Donovan's attorney objected. He called the letter standard legal procedure, routine practice. He said there was nothing inappropriate about it. I let him talk. Then I said, "Mr. Hull, sending a letter to an injured woman in a hospital bed 4 days after your client destroyed her vehicle and her livelihood, threatening her with legal costs if she fights back. You call that routine? I call it something different." Donovan shifted in his seat. For the first time, he looked slightly less comfortable. I then entered Exhibit B into evidence. Exhibit B was a phone record, a detailed log of calls and text messages. On the night of the accident, while Rosalie was still at the hospital, Donovan Ashford Wells III made 11 phone calls in the span of 40 minutes. One of those calls was to a man named Gregory Tant. Mr. Tant, it turned out, was a former city official. He had connections in the Traffic Enforcement Division. The call lasted 22 minutes. The following morning, the initial police report, which had documented the location of tire marks, the angle of impact, and a note that the traffic light had been red for Donovan at the time of the crash, was quietly amended. The tire mark measurements were removed. The light timing was listed as inconclusive. Donovan leaned over and whispered something to his attorney. I said, "Mr. Wells, do you have something you would like to share with the court?" He said no, but his jaw was tight now. I told him we would return to those phone records shortly. I then asked the prosecution to call their witness. The witness was a young man named Carlos Ibanez. He was 23 years old. He had been walking home from a late shift at a warehouse when the crash happened. He saw everything. He had pulled out his phone and called 911. He had also done something else, something Donovan did not know about. Carlos had recorded 37 seconds of video on his phone before emergency vehicles arrived. The video was entered as Exhibit C. We played it on the screen at the front of the courtroom. The footage was shaky, filmed from across the street, but it was clear enough. You could see Donovan's SUV accelerating through the intersection. You could see the red light. You could see the impact. You could hear the crash, that terrible sound of metal on metal, and then you could see something else. You could see Donovan step out of the SUV, look at the damage, look at Rosalie's crushed car, pull out his phone, and make a call. He did not go to Rosalie's window. He did not check if she was alive. He did not call 911. He made a personal call. The room was very quiet when the video ended. Donovan's attorney was already on his feet. He said the video was taken without consent, that the angle was misleading, that his client had been in shock. I said, "Mr. Hull, sit down." He sat down. I looked at Donovan. I asked him directly, "Mr. Wells, after the crash, why did you not check on the driver of the other vehicle?" And that is when it happened. Donovan Ashford. Wells III straightened up in his chair. He looked at me, and then he looked out at the gallery, at Rosalie sitting in the third row with her wrapped wrist and her tired eyes. And he said it. He said, "Honestly, look at where she works. Look at what she does. Who cares about them? People like her, they are replaceable. I have created more value in one business quarter than she will in her entire life. Who actually cares?" 10 seconds. That is how long the silence lasted. 10 full seconds where nobody breathed, and then the gallery erupted, not loudly, not in shouts. It was something deeper than shouting. It was the sound of collective disbelief, of people who had seen something they could not unsee. I heard a woman say, "Oh my God," softly. I heard a man near the back make a sound that was part anger and part grief. I saw a court officer near the door close his eyes briefly. I looked at Rosalie Ferreira. She was not crying. She was very still, and that stillness was more powerful than any outburst could have been. My face did not change. I have trained myself over many years to hold still when I feel the most. But inside, something shifted, something that I can only describe as the moment a judge stops performing a duty and starts fulfilling a calling. I picked up my pen. I set it down. I looked at Donovan Ashford Wells III, and I said very quietly, "We are going to sit with that for a moment. Donovan, that is what I am going to call you now. Donovan, I want you to hear me clearly, because I am going to say this once, and I need every word to reach you. You just told this court, told this woman, told every person in this room that she does not matter, that because she serves lunch to children and cleans office buildings at midnight, she is somehow worth less than you. That her life, her pain, her broken wrist, her 12 days without work, her borrowed grocery money, that none of it deserves your concern because, in your words, she is replaceable. Donovan, I want to ask you something. Who taught you that? Who sat across from you at some point in your life and told you that a person's worth is equal to their income? That the man in the tailored suit standing in the courtroom is more human than the woman in the third row who wakes up at 5:30 every morning and feeds 300 children? Because I want to tell you what I see when I look at Rosalie Ferreira. I see someone who has never once asked the world to carry her. I see someone who has worked every single day with both hands, even when one of those hands was in a cast because of you. I see someone who did not take your $2,000 check even though she needed money desperately, because she understood that signing that paper meant saying what happened to her did not matter, and she knew it mattered. Do you know how much courage that takes? Do you have any idea? And then I look at you, Donovan, you who has had every advantage this world offers. Good schools, family money, connections, opportunities most people never see. And you used all of that, all of it, to try to make a problem disappear. You called a political contact from the parking lot while a woman was bleeding 30 feet away from you. You sent a threatening letter to a hospital bed. You sat in this courtroom with a smirk on your face like none of this was real. You said she does not matter. Donovan, I am about to show you what mattering looks like. And to anyone watching this story right now, if you believe that a person's dignity is not something money can buy or take away, drop a like on this video right now, because what comes next is the part where justice stops being a concept and starts being a consequence. Donovan Ashford Wells III, please stand. On the charge of reckless operation of a motor vehicle resulting in bodily injury, this court finds you guilty. On the charge of obstruction related to the amended police report and the documented contact with a former city official, this matter is being referred to the district attorney's office for further review. That is out of my hands now. But this part is not. Here is what I am ordering. You will pay a fine of $47,000. That number is not arbitrary. $14,000 goes directly to Rosalie Ferreira to replace her vehicle and cover every medical bill she received. $21,000 goes into a fund for victims of traffic offenses who cannot afford legal representation. $12,000 is a court-ordered penalty for attempted obstruction of the official record. Your driver's license is suspended for 18 months beginning today. During that suspension, you may not operate any motor vehicle. You may not hire private drivers to circumvent this order. You will use public transportation, taxis, or ride-share services like everyone else. Now, community service. You will perform 400 hours of community service, not in an office, not behind a desk. Here is exactly where and how. For the first 160 hours, you will work in the cafeteria at Jefferson Elementary School. You will serve lunch, you will clean tables, you will do exactly what Rosalie Ferreira does every single day. You will wear a volunteer badge and you will not mention your name, your background, or your business. You will learn what it means to show up every morning for children who depend on you. For the next 120 hours, you will work the night cleaning shift at a downtown office complex through a city-partnered nonprofit. You will mop floors. You will empty trash cans. You will work until midnight. You will then figure out how to get home without a car. For the remaining 120 hours, you will volunteer at a community legal aid office. You will assist people like Rosalie, who receive threatening legal letters and do not know what to do. You will help them understand their rights. You will do this under supervision, and you will be evaluated monthly. You will submit a written report to this court every 30 days, detailing your service hours, signed by your supervisor at each location, any missed hours, any falsified reports, any failure to comply, and you will return to this courtroom. There is one more condition. You will write a handwritten letter of apology to Rosalie Ferreira, not typed, not drafted by Mr. Hull, written by your hand, in your words. It will be reviewed by this court before it is delivered, and it will contain no legal language, no disclaimers, and no conditions. Now, Mr. Wells, I also need to address your conduct in this courtroom. Your statement, "Who cares about them?" directed at the victim present in this room, constitutes contempt of court. Contempt means you show disrespect to this court and to the process of justice. Bailiff. The bailiff moved to the defense table. Donovan stood up straighter, and for the first time since he had walked in, the mask slipped. His eyes went wide. I watched his hands tighten at his sides as the handcuffs were brought forward. He said, "Wait." He said his attorney would file an appeal. He said he had a shareholder call at 3 o'clock. I said, "Mr. Wells, you will have plenty of time to reschedule." He was taken into custody at 10:51 in the morning. He would be held for 48 hours. A review hearing was scheduled for Thursday at 9 a.m. At that hearing, his compliance with the initial orders would be assessed before any release conditions were finalized. Mr. Hull started talking again. I told him the paperwork would be ready within the hour. I watched them lead Donovan out of the courtroom. The door closed behind him. I looked at Rosalie Ferreira. She had not moved from her seat in the third row. She was looking at her hands. Then she looked up, and she nodded at me. Once, small, quiet. I nodded back. Rosalie received her check within 30 days. She bought a used car, a reliable one, she told the victim's advocate. She went back to her 2 jobs. She was still feeding 300 kids every morning, still cleaning offices every night. 4 months later, a court officer told me that one of the volunteers at Jefferson Elementary had been spotted by a teacher staying late after his assigned hours were done. He was helping a first grader sound out words from a lunch menu poster on the wall. The teacher said he was patient, that the child was laughing. I do not know what happened inside Donovan Ashford Wells III during those months of service. I do not know if it changed him the way I hoped. What I know is that he showed up, every shift, every location, every report, signed and on time. He completed his 400 hours, 7 days ahead of schedule. The letter he wrote to Rosalie was 3 pages long. The victim's advocate told me that when Rosalie read it, she sat quietly for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her purse. She did not say anything about what was in it. She did not have to. I sit alone at this bench sometimes after the room is emptied, after the gallery chairs are pushed in and the overhead lights have dimmed, and the echo of the day's voices has settled into the walls. And I think about what we actually do here, what justice really means. It is not only about punishment, it is about recognition. It is about looking at another human being and saying, I see you. You are not invisible. What happened to you was real, and it mattered. Rosalie Ferreira mattered. Not because a court said so. She mattered before she ever walked through that door. She mattered at 5:30 in the morning when her alarm went off. She mattered at noon when she handed a tray to a child who had not eaten since the night before. She mattered at midnight when she pushed a mop cart through an empty office building that belonged to people who would never learn her name. She mattered every single moment of every single day. And Donovan Ashford Wells III, whatever he becomes from here, is going to spend a long time remembering the day he learned that. That is what I believe. That is what these walls believe. That is what this court stands for. Because here in this room, everybody matters. Everybody.